Students, let us continue with the story The Postmaster by Rabindranath Tagore. So we had stopped at page number 50. Let us continue. Released from nursing the postmaster, Ratan once again took up her normal place outside his door. But his call did not come for her as before. Sometimes she would peep in and see the postmaster sitting distractedly on his stool or lying on his bed. Students, recall back to the previous class. Ratan was very emotionally connected to the postmaster. She was learning to read and write from him and waiting for his call at midday when he would teach her the consonants, the vowels and the conjuncts. However, this time his call did not come. Sometimes she would peep in and see the postmaster sitting distractedly on his stool. Distracted means unable to concentrate. So she would notice that the postmaster was distracted. He was either lying on his bed or sitting on his stool. While she sat expecting his summons, so she sat expecting for his call. He was anxiously awaiting a reply to his application. Students, what kind of application is this? He had applied for a transfer to Kolkata from Ullaipur. He wanted to work in the head office, which is located in Kolkata, and leave the mundaneness of village life present in Ullaipur. She sat outside the door going over her old lessons numerous times. So she revised whatever has been taught to her till now. She was terrified that if he suddenly summoned her again one day, she was frightened that what if he calls her one day? The conjuncts, consonants would all be muddled up in her mind, would all be mixed up. She would be confused and will not remember what has already been taught to her. Eventually, after several weeks, his call came again one evening. So after quite a number of weeks, his call came again. With eager heart, Ratan rushed into the room. "Did you call Dada Babu?" she asked. So all this while, she was waiting earnestly. She was waiting very sincerely for Dada Babu to call her, for him to teach her the alphabets again. "Did you call Dada Babu?" she asked. "I am leaving tomorrow, Ratan," said the postmaster. "Where are you going, Dada Babu?" "I am going home." So, Dada Babu, or the postmaster, has decided that he is going to leave Ullaipur finally. "When are you coming back?" "I shan't come back again." So, the postmaster declares to Ratan that please do not wait for me because I am not going to come back. Ratan did not question him further. The postmaster himself told her that he had applied for a transfer, but his application had been rejected, so he was resigning from his post and returning home. So students, the postmaster had applied for a transfer in the head office, which was located in Kolkata. However, his application had been rejected, which meant that the head office wanted him to work in Ullaipur and not in Kolkata. He had been dejected all this while, but he finally decided that I'm going to leave my job. I'm not going to work in Ullaipur either. So he resigned from his post as a postmaster and decided to return home. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The lamp flickered weakly. So after hearing from the postmaster that he shall never be coming back to Ullaipur, Ratan could not speak to him any longer. She was silent. The postmaster had nothing to tell her as well. The lamp flickered weakly, which means that the lamp was shining unsteadily. Through a hole in the crumbling thatched roof, rainwater steadily dripped on an earthenware dish. So, through the thatched roof. Thatched roof means it was covered with straw. Rainwater dripped down and fell into an earthenware dish, fell into a dish made of clay, fell into a utensil made of clay. Ratan then went slowly out to the kitchen to make some chapati. So Ratan did not say any more. She straightway went to the kitchen to cook dinner for Dada Babu and herself. She made them with none of her usual energy. Students, recall back to the previous classes. You must remember that Ratan was a very enthusiastic girl. She was enthusiastic about learning her lessons, taking care of Dada Babu, and also making dishes for him. However, on this particular day, she lacked enthusiasm and eagerness. She had none of her usual energy. No doubt her thoughts distracted her, so she could not concentrate on the cooking. When the postmaster had had his meal, she suddenly asked, "Dada Babu, will you take me home with you?" So students, you see there is a human connection that she felt with the postmaster, with her Dada Babu, which is why she feels that even after Dada Babu leaves Ulapur, she wouldn't be able to stay here. She asks Dada Babu if he could take her with him to Kolkata. "How could I do that?" said the postmaster, laughing. He saw no need to explain to the girl why the idea was impossible. So students, you see that the postmaster finds the idea ridiculous. That how could he take a village girl, someone who is a house help, with him to Kolkata? He does not consider that the girl was emotionally drawn to him. She thought of him as her emotional support. He laughs at her. He mocks her for asking him such a question. However, he does not even explain to the girl why it was needful for him to laugh at such a suggestion and why he found the idea ridiculous. All night long, whether dreaming or awake, Ratan felt the postmaster's laugh ringing in her ears. So it remained in her mind that when she asked Dada Babu if she could go home with him, he had laughed at her face. The laughter was ringing in her ears. It was to remain in her mind. How could I do that? When he rose at dawn, the postmaster saw that his bath water had been put out ready for him. He bathed according to his Kolkata habit in water brought in a bucket. So this is all about his city life, his city habits. People in the village generally take a bath in the pond or collect water from the well. This is how they take a bath in the village. However, since the postmaster was from a city, he took a bath according to the city rules, in water brought in a bucket. Ratan had not been able to bring herself to ask him what time he would be leaving. She had carried the bath water up from the river late at night in case he needed it early in the morning. So Ratan had not been able to speak to Dada Babu. She had not been able to ask Dada Babu. She could not bring herself to ask Dada Babu when he would be leaving the next day. So without waiting for him to tell her the details of when he would be leaving, she brought in the water, his bath water, in a bucket. As soon as he finished his bath, the postmaster called her. She entered the room softly, looked at him once without speaking, ready for her orders. So the postmaster calls him again after he had taken his bath. She entered the room softly, quietly, and looked at him once without speaking, ready for her orders. "Ratan," he said, "I'll tell the man who replaces me that he should look after you as I have. You mustn't worry just because I am going." So the postmaster is unable to think that the girl is attached to him and not to any random man. She seeks attention from him. She seeks kindness from him and not from any other random man. However, he tells her that you do not need to worry, Ratan. There would be someone replacing me and I will ask the man to look after you. No doubt this remark was inspired by kind and generous feelings. But who can fathom the feelings of a woman? Who can understand a woman? Ratan had meekly suffered many scoldings from her master, but these kindly words were more than she could bear. So here, the remark that the postmaster made is out of generosity. He is kind enough to say that I will ask the next man replacing me to look after you. However, you see Ratan, she starts crying, her heart explodes and she starts crying. Previously, she had suffered a lot of scoldings from the postmaster. She had submissively, quietly taken in his scoldings. But his kind words were too much for her. The passion in her heart exploded and she cried, No, you mustn't say anything to anyone. I don't want to stay here. She says that I cannot bear it. You should not tell any other man to take care of me. I do not even want to stay in Ullapur any longer after you leave. The postmaster was taken aback. He had never seen Ratan behave like that. So the postmaster was taken aback by Ratan's emotional outburst. He had never seen Ratan crying her heart out. And that too for what? He had only said a few kind words to her. A new postmaster came. After handing over his charge to him, the resigning postmaster got ready to leave. So new postmaster arrived and he handed over his duties to the new postmaster and got ready to leave. Before going, he called Ratan and said, Ratan, I've never been able to pay you anything. Today, before I go, I want to give you something to last you for a few days. So students, the postmaster had never previously paid Ratan in money, only in kind. In exchange of her doing housework for him, he used to cook lunch and dinner for her. However, this time, before leaving, he tells her that I have not been able to give you anything previously. Now I'm going to pay you a little which will last you for a few days. Except for the little that he needed for the journey, he took out all the salary that was in his pocket. But Ratan sank to the ground and clung to his feet, saying, I beg you, Dada Babu, I beg you, don't give me any money. Please, no one need to bother about me. Then she fled running. So Ratan refuses. She refuses to take money from him. She breaks down emotionally. She is unable to control her emotions. She is hurt by the postmaster's rejection of her. She cannot fathom why the postmaster would be unable to take her with him to Kolkata. She only desires the human connection she felt towards Dada Babu and not his money. She is unwilling to take money from him. She only wants his affection. The departing postmaster sighed, picked up his carpet bag, put his umbrella over his shoulder, and with a coolie carrying his blue and white striped tin trunk on his head, slowly made his way towards the boat. So the postmaster couldn't fathom why Ratan was unwilling to accept any form of generosity from him. Neither money nor help from the man who had replaced him at work. So he got ready to leave. He took his travelling bag, his umbrella over his shoulder, and the coolie carried his tin trunk, his luggage on his head, and slowly the postmaster made his way towards the boat. When he was on the boat and it had set sail, when the swollen flood waters of the river started to heave like the earth's brimming tears, the postmaster felt huge anguish. So when the boat started to leave, when it had already set sail, now look at the description of nature surrounding him. Rabindranath Tagore describes the river as swollen, which means that it has become larger Okay, it has risen up because of the flood, because of the consistent rainfall. It had swollen, it had risen up and started, and it seemed like, just a second students, and it seemed as if the earth or nature was shedding tears, nature was crying. The postmaster felt a huge anguish, so he was very disturbed. He was anxious, he was nervous. The image of a simple young village girl's grief-stricken face seemed to speak a great, inarticulate, universal sorrow. So even though he was unable to understand Ratan's emotions, he felt great anxiety, and he recalled the young girl's, Ratan's grief-stricken face. Her face when he had told her that I'm going to offer you money, please take it. It will last you at least a few days. He could not forget his face. And if you look at the description, swollen flood waters of the river water which has become larger and it has swollen up, it had risen up. It seemed as if the earth was shedding tears. Everything around the postmaster, nature reflected his own sorrow. Nature reflected his own grief. He felt a sharp desire to go back. Should he not fetch that orphan girl whom the world had abandoned? So Ratan had no one to look after her. He felt a sharp pang of guilt, a sharp pang of sorrow. He felt that he should be going back to Ulapur and take the young orphan girl, Ratan, with him back to Kolkata. But the wind was filling the sails by then. The swollen river was flowing fiercely. So by then the boat had picked up speed. The swollen river was flowing fiercely, so it was impossible to go back now. The village had been left behind. The riverside burning ground was in view. So he could only see the banks of the river. The cremation ground on the bank of the river was in view. Detached by the current of the river, he reflected philosophically that in life there are many separations, many deaths. So even though he was guilty, he tried to rationalize, he tried to reason out and think philosophically that in life there are many separations and many deaths. People always leave. What point was there in going back? Who belonged to whom in this world? So he felt that he would be able to forget Ratan with time. Even the guilt that he felt for leaving Ratan behind was only momentary. It was simply for a moment that he felt guilty, and he rationalized and reasoned out with himself that it is okay. In life, there are many such separations, many such deaths, and nobody belonged to anyone in this world. So I'm not answerable to this little girl. I do not belong to her, and neither does she belong to me. But Ratan had no such philosophy to console her. So Ratan did not have any such belief or any such faith. All she could do was wander near the post office, weeping copiously. So the only thing that Ratan could do was station herself near the post office, wait near the post office and cry tremendously, cry enormously. Maybe a faint hope lingered in her mind that Dada Babu might return. So she had a faint hope, a faint faith in her mind that perhaps if I wait near the post office, Dada Babu might return. And this was enough to tie her to the spot, prevent her from going far. Oh, poor unthinking human heart! Error will not go away. Logic and reason are slow to penetrate. So Tagore here laments that, oh, unthinking human heart which is unable to think, human heart which is unable to rationalize. Error will not go away. Logic and reason are slow to penetrate. So when you think from your heart, you will always make mistakes, because you cannot rationalize when you think from your heart. That is what Tagore is trying to say. We cling with both arms to false hope, refusing to believe the weightiest proofs against it, embracing it with all our strength. He further says that when we think from our heart, we tend to cling with both arms to false hope. We tend to keep on hoping. We tend to hold on to that one straw, refusing to believe the heaviest of proofs, the weightiest of proofs against it, which means that Ratan all this while had been thinking from a heart, unwilling to reason out that Dada Babu will never return. Even though the heaviest of proofs was against this belief of her that probably if she waited long enough near the post office, Dada Babu might return to fetch her. In the end, it escapes, ripping our veins, draining our heart's blood, until regaining consciousness, we rush to fall into snares of delusion all over again. So Tagore is saying that we keep on hoping until and unless it becomes too late, until and unless that hope rips our veins, drains our heart's blood, until regaining consciousness, until we are able to think rationally, we rush to fall into snares of delusion all over again. So it is all an illusion without any proof. All this while, Ratan had been waiting for Dada Babu without any proof for him that he was going to come back to fetch her, or even come back to the village of Ulapur to work as a postmaster again. The postmaster is able to leave easily and freely, while Ratan represents injustice and grief. So you see, students, while the postmaster is able to think rationally, he's a rational man, he philosophically thinks, he depends on a philosophy. He reflects back that nobody belongs to anyone in this world. That is how he quenches his guilt. That is the reason also that he is able to leave easily and freely. However, Ratan is unable to do so because she thinks from her heart. The postmaster feels no obligation to Ratan. He feels that he does not owe her any sort of duty. He is not answerable to her. However, Ratan as a character represents injustice and grief. Injustice meted out to her by the society and the postmaster. And the grief she feels because of the postmaster's betrayal of her trust. He betrays her trust by never coming back to fetch her. He betrays her trust by telling her that he will not be able to take her with him to Kolkata. He betrays her trust by not teaching her the alphabets any longer. So students, I hope you are clear with this story. That is all for today's lesson. Thank you.